My first reaction is, it's a proud privilege for me. He also said, you choose the subject you want. You don't need to talk about my father. That was even more surprising. But I'm sorry, I have to talk about Professor K.L. Nagarajan. So whenever I think of Professor K.L. Nagarajan, my thoughts immediately go to the roller coaster ride in my life in the summer of 1974, 51 years back. In the blistering sun, I was standing outside the office, the admin office of this college. My face writ large with desperation, disappointment, anger, anxiety, not knowing what to do next, where to go. It was hardly 2 weeks before that I was on top of the world. For a simple reason that I had scored A grade in all 5 subjects in my school final. I got a score which is one of the top 3 in the state. The curriculum was ISC. I don't know if it exists today also. Indian School Certificate. It's a program conducted by the University of Cambridge. But that was 2 weeks back. Here I was today, and in the last almost 2 weeks, 3 colleges had rejected my BCom admission. Loyola College, Vivekananda College, New College. The 4th college to reject me was Vaishnav College. With that, I'm standing in the sun there, wondering what happened. None of the colleges had heard about a program called ISC. For them, whatever marks I had got is compared to a PUC. My score was 76.2%, whereas a PUC normal score is 90 plus. So you can understand I didn't stand a chance at all. So there I was standing, I was not even able to look up because there were tears in my eyes. I'm looking down. Suddenly I find a shadow creeping up upon me. I look up and there I find this gentleman, white shirt and white trousers, looking at us. He asked my brother, who had come with me, what happened. My brother explained. He took all my papers, went through them, and then just said, you wait here. He went into the office. 10 minutes later, he comes out and says, go pay your fees. You are admitted. I have no idea who he was. He has no idea who I am. We are absolute strangers. But reading my face, he decided to take some action. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Professor K.L. Nagarajan, the human being for you. Total strangers, he could do what he thought he should be doing. Then you have the teacher, Professor K.L. Nagarajan. I don't want to use any adjectives of how great he was, okay? But I can give you one simple factual data. After my BCom, I went on to do CA and my ICWA. I passed both in my first attempt. I was placed in the top 50 in the country For the entire program of CA and ICWA, I have not attended a single coaching class for any subject. That to tell you the kind of foundation that Professor K.L. Nagarajan and his team laid in us. The kind of conceptual clarity that we had, that we could tackle anything further. That was the teacher. Then the fact that Professor K.L. Nagarajan, for an absolute stranger, could walk into the management committee room, interrupt their meeting, convince them to give a seat to an absolute stranger, will tell you the kind of credibility that he commanded among the management committee members. That was the kind of respect that each and every member of the management committee had for him. You know? So for me, Professor K.L. Nagarajan is not just a professor, just a teacher. He is far, far more than that. Gurubhyo Namaha. Okay. Do you guys really want to know how to go about your journey? Anybody? என்ன பேச்சு மூச்சியே காணும். என்ன போலாமா இல்லை லஞ்ச் பிரேக் போயிடலாமா? That is honest. So let us do a quick round. I am not a career counselor, so I can't tell you specifics. What I am going to do is, I am just going to take you into some 4 buckets or 4 themes. I am going to tell you what my journey has been. And then I am going to talk to you about the awareness that you need to have, the kind of capability that you need to build, and how to evolve. I am not applying for a job here, but this is the graph of my career. 4 decades across finance, information technology, mobile technology, and you have it there, consulting, in 3 different countries. Okay, 40 years flat. If you notice, I started off in internal auditing in 1981 in Jamshedpur. Moved on to accounting. Within about 7 years, I became financial controller for a group of companies in the Middle East, Muscat, the capital of Sultanate of Oman. Another 6 years, I have been seconded to India by that same company to set up the India operations, a software subsidiary for that company. In 95, I moved back as group financial controller. In 97, that's about 16, 17 years after a finance career, I moved totally out of finance into information technology. From a group financial controller, I come down several levels as manager information technology. Not that. That's a career change altogether. After a couple of years, I moved back to India as Chief Information Officer for a NASDAQ listed company. Right? It was the first internet company in India. And then I am in information technology after that, 97, 99 again. About 10 years later, after being in information technology in 2-3 companies, I challenged myself because I don't have a formal qualification in IT. So I went ahead and sat for this exam, Certified Information Systems Auditor, CISA, right? Just to see whether I had learnt anything in the 10 years that I had. And again, having passed that, I moved on. Very surprisingly, when I went for that exam, I was 50 years old. I go in with all the students. At the entrance to the hall, they stop me and they say, "Sir, parents la allowed illa sir." Then I had to show them my hall ticket, convince him that I am also a guy to write the exam, and I went in. So after information technology, I moved to mobile technology and the startup space, where I was working on product development. Nothing to do with finance. And then, of course, after 4 years there, I finally signed off my corporate career as chief executive for a hospital. But I don't usually put this up in my public profile because I quit in less than 6 months. I could not take the pressure of seeing pain and suffering every day. That is not for me. So I left that. But that was my sign off. And then I've been a consultant. Okay. Keep this in mind because the rest of the story is going to be based on these twists and turns, ups and downs. That's very critical to understand. Let's come to the awareness bucket of specifically for you people. Now, when you are graduating now or after MCom, these are the options that are going to be available to you at a very general level. You can either study further, do a master's or research or get into one of the professional programs like a CA, whatever. But whatever you do, my simple request, please learn it. Because in the times to come, just having a degree is of going to be little use. In the times to come where artificial intelligence is going to take a lot of things, unless you have depth of knowledge in whatever you study, it's going to be very difficult. So please learn. That focus cannot be lost. Or you can take up employment immediately after this without going into any of these things. Accounting, auditing, so many options are available. But before you go, try to acquire some skill. This is important for you. Any kind of skill. I'm just giving an example, it is tally. But to plan your next steps, first understand your capabilities, your interests, your needs, your goals. Don't do something just because somebody is asking you to do something. This is very, very important. And don't think that for me to succeed, I have to study further. Not necessary. In my own batch, I find myself and Venkat are here. We are chartered accountants. Right? I've been in industry all along. He's been a practicing chartered accountant all along. And he's still going strong. I'm happily retired. My own classmate, he said, "Hey, I have had enough studies." And he went and joined a bank. He spent about 10 years in India, moved on to Europe. From Europe, he went to America, all with the same bank. 2 years back, he retired as the chief risk officer of a major commercial bank in Abu Dhabi. His only qualification was BSc Physics. Not BCom or anything to do with business. So you can always find your way. Don't think it has to be study further and then do it. Choose whatever is based on your needs, your interests, your capabilities. So when you go out into the industry, these are the kind of options you'll be having. Your employers are either going to be a proprietary or a partnership, all that you have read in your BCom, the various options. But what you are not likely to read is the limited companies, how are they managed? They could be owner-driven, or they could be professionally managed, or they could be a combination. Owner-driven, you will find normally the private limited companies அந்த மாதிரி தான் இருக்கும். Professionally managed, take for example Hindustan Unilever, totally professionally managed, or a HDFC Bank, professionally managed, totally. But a lot of cases you will find there is a combination. You take a TVS company. The family member and the family itself is a majority shareholders, but it will be a public company. There will be professional management, but it will be that founder family driven. So that you need to understand the kind of world you are going to enter into when you take up employment. If you are talking of a professional organization, you need to understand how the environment will be. What are the dynamics? Every company is going to be driven by key performance indicators. I'm sure you guys have studied what is a key performance indicator. For the company, it could be return on capital employed, gross margin percentage, net interest margin, depending on the kind of business it is in. Right? And they are going to be subjected to a scrutiny every 90 days. 3 மாசத்துக்கு ஒரு தடவை business analysts will be studying the operations and questioning the management. So that will be the kind of pressure in a professionally run organization. Now the employees like you and me, our performance will also be reviewed, and this normally happens over 12 months. Rarely, in rare cases, it could happen 6 monthly also. But the employee also will be carrying KPIs. But you will take on a KPI, please be sure that it is as specific as possible. Otherwise, it's going to be working against you. This is important to understand. Right? And see that it is reasonable, realistic, something which is totally relevant to your responsibility area. I don't know how many of you have faced this, but you may have to face bias. You understand what is bias? Yes, no? You understand? Have you faced bias in normal life? The same thing you are likely to face here. The bias may be blatant or it could be very subtle. And this happens not only in our country, it happens globally also. So don't think it's unique to us. Right? Now bias will happen in several ways. I have faced bias. When I was doing my CA, I applied for MBA in Madras University. I came first in the rank list. I was called for the interview and they told me, sir, you are first in the rank list, but I cannot put your name on the list and submit it to MGR, who has to approve it, because of your name. If you can drop the second part of your name through a notification in the official gazette, we can go ahead with this. Now, as a 20-year-old, you know how I would behave. I said, get lost, and did my CA and did well in life. No problem. In a similar way, in another case of bias, in a consulting contract where I was referred by one person to consult for a major textile company in South India. It's an owner-driven company. It's a 500 crore plus company. The owner was IIT Madras gold medalist mechanical engineer. This organization wanted major ERP systems to be implemented in the company. And I was the person to advise and execute the program itself. So this owner, managing director, chairman, was having discussions with me. I had already spent 1 month in their factories across 3 towns in Tamil Nadu. And after a month, since I've understood all the operations, I'm going for discussions. I've had 2 rounds of discussions. We have figured out what are the KPIs that he is going to monitor. And the third meeting, we are discussing casually. He discovers I'm not an engineer. I'm a chartered accountant. He was totally shocked and he stopped the meeting then and there. He said, but I thought you will be a IT engineer. How can you be designing information systems for us? Let me think it over. We'll discuss again tomorrow. And then he consulted the person who referred me and took a lot of convincing for him to accept me later on. So this is a bias of a different kind. So these kind of situations you will face, be ready for it. That's all. You can't do anything about it. That is the real world. Just be ready for it. Performance matters. Perception matters too. You just heard Professor Ganesan talking about Professor K.L. Anand. They started their lecture session walking into the room without a book. What did Prof tell them? Hey, you may know the subject, but when you walk into your classroom, please carry a book. That is how students are going to perceive you. So that perception makes a difference, is an important point for you to understand. And the problem is, perception is something you cannot control. Am I right? Can you control it? ஒன்றுமே காரில் விடல சார். நீங்கள் ரிட்டையர்ட் சார், அவங்க தான் சார் நான் கேட்குறேன். பர்செப்ஷன் இஸ் சம்திங் யூ கேனாட் கண்ட்ரோல். அதுதான் ப்ராப்ளமே. பர்ஃபார்மன்ஸ் உங்கள் கண்ட்ரோலில் இருக்குது. ஒரு வேலை செய்யணுமா, கரெக்டாக வேலை செஞ்சு முடிச்சிடலாம். நீங்கள் அதோட ஸ்கில் லெவல், எக்ஸ்பர்டீஸ் எல்லாம் உங்கள் கை லெவலில் இருக்குது. பட் இன்னொருத்தர் உங்களை எப்படி பார்க்குறார், மதிக்கிறார், அவர் மைண்டில் என்ன ஓட்டது உங்கள் கண்ட்ரோலில் கிடையாது. இதுதான் இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் டு அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்ட். And workplace, what are the factors that will negatively impact how others perceive you? I'm just giving you a few examples. Arriving late for a meeting, being unprepared for a meeting, rude behavior, whether with others or your colleagues, or gossiping, talking ill of others. These are all things which people will not say anything immediately, but they will form an opinion about you without even telling you. That is very dangerous. So be aware that small things like this can unnecessarily cause a stain in how others perceive you. And both are important. Never underestimate the power of common sense. Common sense na ennadu ba? Understand, common sense as something which each and every one of you have in you. It's nothing unique to me or him. Every one of you has got this common sense, which is native intelligence. Please ensure that you make use of it. This is very important. And whenever there's a problem in which you are involved, just asking fundamental questions will help you come out of your problem set. Just define the problem. What is this problem? Where is it happening? Who is responsible? Simple things like this can easily solve a problem for you. And corporate world, you'll normally come a lot of jargon. And the jargon பார்த்து பயந்துடக்கூடாது. It will either be complicated English or some jargon unique to that particular business or industry. If you go as an accountant or finance person and you move away from it just because there is some jargon, you are going to lose out in the race. Get involved, try to understand. It's not a big problem at all. If I have been able to manage more than 50% of my career in information technology where I have had no training, that's just an example for you. So just ensure that you use your practical intelligence along with your subject knowledge. It's a very, very strong winning combination. Your financial safety net. The earlier you start thinking in these terms, once you start employment, It's going to help you a lot. What do you mean by financial safety net? One, how much savings that you have? What is the insurance that you have? These are not things which are going to begin, because I know the first time you get a job, you immediately start what the version of the iPhone that I can buy. I find that a lot. So I'm asking you to please think beyond that. And we have all come out of a calamitous COVID situation for a few years where all hell broke loose and nobody knew what to do. And it was only a financial safety net which would help a lot of people come out of it without getting burnt very badly. And how do you do that? How do you build that financial safety net? Building an emergency fund, taking out a medical insurance policy if your employer is not, getting a term life insurance. This is very important to understand. Most people go and get an insurance policy which is called investment oriented. For heaven's sake, don't fall into that trap. That does not help you. What helps you is a term policy which is the cheapest anywhere in the world. Just an example, as a 20-year-old, you can get a 1 crore life cover for hardly 600 rupees a month. That is a term policy. For the same 600, if you take an investment, you will get a coverage of 5 lakhs. That is the difference. And try to avoid this EMI trap. Why is this financial safety net important? When you want to make a change, your workplace becomes toxic sometimes. You are fed up with your boss, you cannot put up with it any longer, you want to move. If you have that freedom, you can move. And that freedom is only through a financial safety net. In terms of your capabilities, how do you build? The first thing I want you to think of is building a moat. I don't know if you understand what is a moat. I've given you a pictorial of what is a moat. It's a deep, wide water channel around a castle which makes it difficult for enemies to reach into your castle. It acts as a protection. And in your case, your protection is the unique value proposition that you will be providing. What is the competitive advantage that you have vis-a-vis your colleague in the office? How do you ensure that it becomes difficult for the management to think in terms of replacing you? Let us not be confident that we are secure in our job. That confidence can arise only if you make it difficult for them. And that is possible only when you do one or more of these things. It can happen when you become trustworthy in the company, when you become dependable, when you become a subject matter expert, or you have a level of skill higher than your colleague. So you need to see how you can deepen your moat and how do you widen your moat. Simply by adopting one or more of these methods. Communication is the most underrated soft skill in the world. But believe me, this can make all the difference between success and failure in life, not just in career. It is a powerful tool, first of all, to impress somebody, to make a first impression, to build bridges, to network among people. This is important. And it matters in every sphere, whether it is official or is personal or social. It doesn't matter, all three areas. And when I say communicate, it is language agnostic. The language does not matter, but clarity of thinking matters. I know a lot of people who come from a Tamil education background are inhibited when people are talking in English in a meeting. I've seen that often when I have done campus recruitment going down south. He's a very good engineer, but his English is not so good. He is always hesitating to commute. So don't fall into that kind of a trap. English is a language you can easily command in a matter of 3 months in some program in British Council or wherever. It's not a big deal at all. Just invest those 3 months and you'll be doing very well. And remember, I know language is a political issue in our state, but the simple thing is, the more language you know, the wider you have a reach. And this is very, very important. And again, like Professor Ganesan was saying, your lecture is complete only when the last student understands. The same way, communication is complete only when the listener understands what you want to say. You cannot say, hey, avanukku puriyalannu solli prayojanam illa. Your work will not get done. This is important. Yeah. This is something you need to think of as a continuous process. Reading and reading. Reading to deepen your knowledge in whichever subject you are specializing in. To widen your knowledge in other areas, because you need to be aware of what is happening. You cannot be a frog in the well. You need to know exactly what's happening. You need not become an expert in other areas, but you need to be aware. And this reading will be newspapers, magazines, whatever is relevant to you. Evolution. Yeah. It's important to think long term. When I say long term, I am talking of, at least 5 to 10 years. What do I want to be in 5 to 10 years? When I started my career, I said I should be head of the finance department in any organization within 10 years. I had set a goal for myself. I had achieved that in 7 years. Then you think of the next goal. So think in terms of 5 to 10 years at least, and put a target and work towards that. And allow time to work for you. You take up a job, it's not going to be always comfortable. For the management to form an impression about you, you need to spend a few years with them. Wherever they are not going to get highly thrilled with you or otherwise. So ensure that you spend some time to build your level. This is something, I was contrasting with my friend Venkat, who's been practicing chartered accountant for 40 years. Both of us started off life together. Here I am I showed you my career graph with so many twists and turns. I chose a particular path, and like I told you in the first slide, you need to be aware of your needs, your interests, your passions. I would always get bored with my job after 3 years. I cannot be repeating the same job after that. That's how my mind is made up of. So you have to see whether you are like that or you are very comfortable doing the same thing in different areas. That is something you have to figure out for yourself. But understand that you can have twists and turns which may be unplanned. It's not that I have planned all those things. There are some unplanned events in my life also. Right? And since I had built a safety net, I was able to manage all that. And out of 40 years, I spent hardly 16 years in finance, because beyond that, it did not interest me. In that 16 years, I had moved on to become financial controller, a board member. There was nothing more in finance for me. I needed something else. So I moved into IT, because as a finance controller of an IT group of companies, I knew enough about IT. But tell me, after having spent 20 years in IT, how many programming languages do you think I know? Any guesses? Any guess? I hardly know. I know absolutely no programming language. So understand the difference between the two. Okay? How do you manage? What is it you want? And when I say career shift, I'm just talking of making slight changes. I'm interested in auditing all these years. I want to move into accounting. That also is a career shift. I'm in banking industry for 15 years. I want to move to a different industry, a career shift. But in all these career shifts, it's important for you to understand what are your skills that will be applicable, whichever industry you work in, whichever role you are playing. Those are called the transferable skills. Each of you will be having some skills like that. You know, skills like a leadership skill, an analytical skill, or a communication skill. Everything is important. I don't know how many of you guys run a marathon or participate in one. Anybody? No. But understand that life itself is a marathon. Don't try to sprint it. This is important. And your career is just one part of your life. You go to office for 8 hours or 10 hours, whereas your day is 24 hours. Remember that. See, how do you prioritize these things, whether it is health, fitness, family, friends, entertainment. And important is pursue some passion beyond your work. Something which will give you fulfillment beyond just getting a high on whatever work you are doing. Build an identity beyond your career also. Most critical, as far as I am concerned, which I could not do, and because of which I probably made a couple of stupid decisions in my career, which you can avoid if you get a mentor. A mentor is somebody who can advise you right, who can show a mirror to your face. You know, who will be objective in telling you, hey, what you are doing is right, what you are doing is not right. Somebody you can ask relevant questions to you. The simple act of asking a relevant question to you, because answers are all with you, it's not with somebody else. Find a mentor who will act as a career support system for you. It will be of great help to you guys. And see if you can find a role model. There are so many role models happening today who have got multiple interests. Have you heard of this company called Masala Lab on YouTube? Anybody? The guy run by a guy called Krish Ashok. It's a food related YouTube channel. That guy is actually the global head of artificial intelligence in TCS. He's a columnist. He's a musician. He's so many things rolled into one. It's not that he has given up one and taken something. It's just that you get fulfillment from something to make you feel better. I'll sign off with this. I'll wish you all the best. Thank you.
Now we would like to hear a few words from Mr. A. N. Raman sir,